So that's the crazy thing too, is we talk about these reality distortion fields, and we see people doing these things, and we never ask how they're doing
or how can I do them.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like, and when I see things like that, and like you go back and you watch the game tape, and then you start realizing, oh, there's a pattern here. They're doing something over and over again.
Yeah.
And I previously overlooked it. I didn't think that it was having that much of an effect, but it is having that much of an effect. And there is a skill set behind what I'm witnessing, and I think that this is one of those things.
Oh, 100%. The only thing I would say on top of that is that it is a superpower, and it's a skill you can train. But with great power comes... All right, what is up? We are back. Hopefully we don't run out of battery because we have a lot to talk about in this episode.
Yes.
I almost feel like I should change it before we start.
Let's
because this is going to be a great episode. This is the Super Secret Founders Drive with Jake and Tendo.
Yo.
We are here in the car, and we just got done filming a really interesting episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Really interesting episode. That'll be live on YouTube and on Constance here.
Yep.
It was all about Adam Neumann.
Adam Neumann.
The WeWork founder. We went through some of his background. We went through the WeWork era, and we touched a little bit on flow, which is his future.
Yep.
But here we want to talk a little bit about the game that you can learn, the lessons that we feel like he learned through his adventures, and then how you can apply it to be, you know, the best and the best business person you can be, and go and take it to the fullest potential.
Yes.
With Constance too.
Yeah, of course.
So where do we want to start this conversation?
Let's start with what you were talking about, the topic that you wanted to jump off.
So I not even necessarily jump off, but I did want to mention it because I think there is a conundrum here. When you are flow and you are in this vision of communal spacing, we own the building, we'll lease it out to tenants. There's a conundrum here where the entire business model is allowing people to pay above market rates for that same living space because of all the amenities, because of the communal living. Right? Above market rates. Now, I believe that those above market rates put renters even farther from ownership. And I'm curious how that's going to play out, where they talk about this issue of home ownership in America. A lot of people, young people, don't ever think they're ever going to own a house. And it's becoming a real problem, where a lot of the wealth you generate is in a big asset like that. And so his company is pretty much positioned to keep people renting forever. That, I think, is going to be an issue in the future, where over time you're going to think to yourself, hey, if I'm going to spend 30 years in a flow building, I might spend $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 and not have a single asset to show for it, which is the renter's problem, a dilemma, essentially.
So it's like, what is that trade-off?
Exactly. It has to be a very high amount of value trade-off to say I'm going to pay above market rates and I'm never going to own the asset. So I think it's just an interesting thing to think about, how not only they position themselves as a company, but how they talk about things, because they're not interested in you owning anything. And you should be aware of that when you go into a flow building.
Yeah, but you can't take anything to the... So here's the argument, right? If I'm thinking about it on his perspective, 70% of people under 40 don't own anything already.
Exactly.
And so if you get to 40 and you're not really owning anything, it's like maybe you just don't really want to own anything. Maybe you want more of the flexibility to be able to jump from one point to another point. Another thing is that
possibly
a lot of it is aiming to be more communal, and so they talk about the communications that you have with different people in the building, and how they're creating more of those in the business world. They call them water cooler moments.
Right.
But I think there's a degree of that in the residential space too.
Yes.
Especially in apartment buildings. And so if that's something where it's like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher and I can blast that out to everybody that's living here, and it's a very simple way of doing that, then you start to ask, okay, I'm living in this communal space where I don't necessarily own anything, and a lot of communes aren't really about ownership anyway.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily owning anything, but I am meeting and interacting with people and developing relationships where I can own things that I do care about. It might be something I'm collecting. It might be a business that I've started. It might be a variety of things that can come from one of these relationships or these experiences that I get from being in one of these buildings. So
yeah, no, I think it's very
how does that
interesting.
sit with?
I think like the people that aren't owning something right now, they're not doing it because they don't want to. Most people just can't get there. They're spending $2,100 a month on rent because the banks think they can't afford $1,500 in a mortgage. And it's just this really bad system that we have where you just can't own anything because it's kind of out of reach. And I think his company is going to exacerbate that. It's going to make it even more impossible to own something that I believe a majority of Americans get a lot of their wealth, specific and also like family wealth, through assets like a home, assets like, you know, buildings and stuff like that, physical assets. Because I think most people aren't entrepreneurs, they aren't business owners, and so they don't have that equity option, right, to grow their wealth that way. And so you do it by paying the mortgage over 30 years.
Most people right now don't own their home outright,
but not because they don't want to.
Most people,
you know,
don't own a home, period.
Right.
But then even the people that do own their home don't own the home outright.
100%.
You're paying,
but you're building equity.
You're building equity, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's you don't own it outright. So
of course
there's that aspect of it too. And so it's like, in terms of if most people aren't in that space, then you could go and ask that question, okay, what is the trade-off that I'm making?
100%. I think the trade-off is very obvious, right? In terms of the vision of a communal living space where they're going to be above market rates, but they're going to have all this value added. It's going to be it's in a time and place in America right now where we do have a lot of renters, and so I think it plays really well. I'm just curious how that socially is going to play, right? If you start becoming the face of the company that's pushing more renters into renting, you know, it's going to be curious how that plays out.
Yeah, being the face of the company that's pushing more renters into renting. I don't know. I think I don't know if like home ownership is the goal for a lot of younger people. I think there's so much flexibility in the part of what I'm trying to reconcile is that there's a lot of freedom and flexibility in the world where some people are like, hey, I want to go and spend a month over in you know, Idaho. I'm gonna go and spend 3 months over in France, and I'm gonna go and spend 2 months over in Spain, and then I'll come back and I'll just like be at my apartment, or I'll go and get a lease whenever I come back here. I don't
know. Is that most people?
Huh?
I feel like that's not most people.
It's an increasing number of people.
It is, but like I think
because
most people aren't they just 9-to-5ers? They can't go to Spain for 2 months. They can't.
Yeah, but I was talking with a 9-to-5er who was like, she had a great
remote
quarter, and she was just like, hey, I'm gonna go out to, you know, Puerto Rico for like a week and just kind of hang out there.
Oh yeah, for like vacation and stuff like that. Yeah. And there is an increasing amount of remote work where you can get anywhere.
Yeah, and there's also like the aspect of just like so many things are changing that I don't know if I would pin it down to just people still wanting to be able to work or to own a home but not being able to, because another thing is too is like marriage rates are also down. And so
birth rates,
and so there's the marriage rate is the thing that I was going more for because but the birth rates I guess is also an extension of that too, where
don't need a space for that family.
Yeah, so it's like if I'm one person, a single person, and I go and have a whole house and I have to upkeep it, and I have no intention of getting with somebody right now, then it's like also it doesn't necessarily feel as much of a step that I want to take. And so I don't know, it's like there's so many things happening in society, but I do think that to get to the core of your premise is that it would create a more communal environment where you don't necessarily own something. Like the goal isn't ownership, because when you look at a commune, the goal in and of itself isn't to own things.
Which again again just like one layer on top of that. It's the goal. I mean, obviously that's the commune. That's like the vision. But at the end of the day, somebody does own it. At the end of the day, somebody is getting rent paid to them. Somebody is the landlord at the end of the day.
People call him like the world. They said that he wants to be the world's largest landlord.
And he has a clip in this Andreessen Horowitz thing where he is talking down about landlords. And it's like, hey, this is like a really terrible thing we did. But, you know, put it in context. He's the landlord. So it's very interesting, I think, just the kind of the difference between the vision and how he has to get there given the system we have today. Right? Even if he is all about communal living and not having landlords, he has to become the world's largest landlord to achieve that vision.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I think this kind of parlays into the next point. That, this whole reality distortion.
Yeah, because I think that is a reality distortion. But
yeah,
let's go into like, I want to get like a definition of what you think a reality distortion is, or field, or
So reality distortion. Reality distortion fields. It sounds more magical when you think about it, but it's really practical. That woo woo.
But like, yeah, what is it? What do you think it is?
It starts with the premise that we have a perception problem. And the problem of perception is that we can't process everything all at once. And so we have to decide we decide what we're going to process based off of where we choose to put our focus.
Yes.
What we choose to frame around the world becomes what we end up actually perceiving.
Right.
And what we end up perceiving becomes what we end up believing, or the other way around. What we end up believing becomes what we end up perceiving. So it ends up reinforcing itself, especially without a conscience intervention to be like, hey, I need to reevaluate what I'm saying here.
Just give a really simple example for this. I might have one. Nobody has enough lifetimes to become an expert in everything. And so when the doctor says, hey, this is bad for you, you're not going to necessarily go through 8 years of medical school.
You're going to trust the doctor.
You're going to say, hey, the doctor says this. And so then that's your now perception.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're essentially talking about, right?
Yeah, because, that's a good example.
I mean, it's a very simple example.
because the doctor has spent their time looking at a specific set of information. Because we can't see everything and we can't experience everything in our world, we trust what other people say.
Yes.
And so that's a social example, but I was even just looking at it from a single person, like you can't see what's behind you. That's an even simpler example.
Sure.
And to see what's behind you, you have to turn around, but now you have this other situation where you can't see what's behind you.
There's always a blind spot. Yeah.
So there's always a blind spot. We're driving right now. There's blind spots on the side. And so we have these blind spots because we can't perceive everything. And what that does is that we end up creating these mental maps of the world, these mental models and these mental maps of how the world works, both on a physical world and on the physical plane and in the mental plane, in terms of like how we think about concepts.
I was thinking socially.
And in a social aspect.
because it's like...
But like when we operate socially, we have an idea of how we should conduct ourselves and what we can expect on the other side of us taking a specific action or doing a specific thing.
100%.
And so if that's the landscape, right, where we have these basic maps that tell us about the world that we couldn't map out or trace in a million lifetimes, then it goes to show that our map isn't always going to be right. We're going to have a map that's not always up to date. And we even see that with our tools right now. Like if you have a GPS, you might go into a space. If your maps aren't updated, it might be, it might not reflect what's actually there. You might say, okay, I can go straight, but then you get there and there's construction happening and then you have to update the map.
Yeah, you might be Michael Scott driving into a freaking lake because you trust the GPS.
Yeah, you got to watch it for trusting that GPS. And so that's a big thing. And so this coupled with the idea of what we experience, we deem to be real. It's like what that thing is like realness is a thing. It's like something that we can touch, something that we can interact with, something that we can verify. And so what happens generally is when we create our maps, we tend to distort what's actually happening. What's actually happening in the actual world. They have this saying, the map is not the territory. And so we end up confusing the map for the territory. And when we're doing that, we generalize. And so we kind of gloss over things. And you hear that when somebody says something like everything, or somebody says like stuff, or things. It's like they're not actually saying the specific thing, the specific topic that they're talking about. They're talking about it in a
generalizing,
But then people also do things where they distort. And so, if you're colorblind, you might say, oh, that's, black, but in reality, for everybody else, it's red.
Right.
And so your map, your sensory map is distorting what's in front of you. And so when I think about a reality distortion field, what he's basically doing is he's telling you how he's viewing the world with so much clarity and conviction that you end up adopting his rules for his map and his territory.
He's influencing your map. And then if you're not careful, you treat the map as the territory and then follow it.
Yeah, and he can come in there and change what you're like, saying so, and that can be a good and a bad thing. And the thing that's also really interesting with it is to be an entrepreneur, and this is where I was saying it really affected what I was what I was saying is you almost have to have the ability to distort reality, because by and large, especially with investors that might be older than you or whatever it might be, users that aren't used to working with a set of techniques that you're used to using, you have to come in there and break down their view of reality in order to show them what's actually possible. And when you do that, that can have a profound effect, because people's lives can improve, or they can get worse, but in the technology and business space,
the goal is to improve it.
Yeah, the goal is to improve there. And I think that that's a thread that you see with Steve Jobs. A lot of times people are like, that's not possible. There's no way that we can do that. And he's like, you can do it. And they're like, no, we can. And he goes, yes, you can. And I want it done by tomorrow. And then people do it. And now they're like,
oh, wow.
And so now they start to trust his map because it's done things that other people have deemed impossible.
Yeah.
I think you see that with Elon Musk. He says, we're going to Mars. Something blew my mind this past week when we were looking at I was reading the SpaceX briefing, and he was talking about launching satellites and creating a constellation of satellites in orbit.
Yeah.
He already
has them, but yeah.
No, but then in using it as to power AI.
Right.
And using it as and then on top of that, using the sun to power the AI instead of. And I was like, this motherfucker's going to Mars. I was like, this motherfucker is going to Mars, because it's like once you set it up there, it increases the radius of Earth, and you can start to create a trail of different pieces of technology that you would need along the way to a Mars destination.
100%.
I think it's not from 0 to 1, but in terms of well, actually, I guess it kind of is, but
but it's a reality distortion.
Yeah,
everyone else will tell you that's not possible. Why are you even thinking about that?
Well, we talk about Reid Hoffman when he first came. When Elon Musk was like, "Yeah, I want to take a turtle to Mars and I want to do this stuff," he was like, "This guy's insane.
You're not getting my money."
Yeah, he's like, but now it's like, maybe he was a little bit more right about it. And when you change someone's opinion, you distort their reality. So when somebody is distorting reality on a large scale and does it as a skill set or does it as a regular thing, they're deemed to have a reality distortion field, because a field is just like, think of a field. It's like,
yeah,
right? It's a field of I can't give a good enough definition of a field, but think of a field, right? It's like it's a space, and where events can happen, a specific set of defined events can happen. And so when you talk about a reality distortion field, it means whenever Steve Jobs is in the area, there's an effect that ripples around him where everybody's like, okay, Steve is here, things are possible. Michael Jordan had a reality distortion field.
Yeah.
When it came down to the clutch, everybody was like, we should be winning, but we might not win because Michael Jordan is here.
Right.
It's like whenever the odds tilt in the other person's favor, or whenever an outcome breaks what was defined by the odds, there is a distortion of what people deem to be real.
Yes. I think that's a fundamental of how people operate in the world too, because you said nothing is objective. Everything is subjective,
or at least when a person interprets it, it becomes subjective.
But all we have is our interpretations.
Right.
So I think everything is subjective in that aspect, and so it's fundamental. And then at a lower power, you'll see this in like sales, right? When it's such a good sale, you feel like you had the idea, or you feel like, oh yeah, they weren't actually like pushing me, because everyone hates that used car salesman scummy type vibe, but if I can
something
but if I can incept that idea into you, then it's like, oh, this was natural, I had the idea, you're just helping me out, and so that's a little bit of reality distortion too, not on the grand scale that some of these entrepreneurs that we're talking about have, but in a little micro way, sales is that level.
But if somebody sees that from a third party, it's like, oh man, every time Jake is around, he just closes. Like, it's different. I tried it and I just couldn't get it to work. The person was like cursing me out, and then he went in there and talked and said 3 things, and
Sign
it was
the
like,
deal.
oh my god. And so it's like, what is he doing? It's like, that's where you start to change.
Are we back?
Yes. So that's the crazy thing too, is we talk about these reality distortion fields, and we see people doing these things, and we never ask how they're doing,
or how can I do them.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like, and when I see things like that, and like you go back and you watch the game tape, and then you start realizing, oh, there's a pattern here, they're doing something over and over again, and I previously overlooked it, I didn't think that it was having that much of an effect. but it is having that much of an effect. And there is a skill set behind what I'm witnessing. And I think that this is one of those things.
Oh, 100%. The only thing I would say on top of that is that it is a superpower and it's a skill you can train. But with great power comes
great responsibility.
Yeah. If you have a reality distortion field and you're Steve Jobs and you are pushing humanity to have great products and great design and just an overall better experience, and you actually do it, that's one thing, right? If you're Adam Neumann and you have this vision of a communal living and a better life, that's great, but then don't take actions that undermine that. Yeah. Right? You know, you can't say, hey, look at this shiny thing, and then be taking money under the table. And so just be cognizant that if somebody else is influencing you in any way, shape, or form, that you are doing a level of due diligence where you can be as objective as possible. It's almost impossible to be that objective, but
objective is like it's a process. It's a process of eliminating your subjective opinion from an outcome. And like we look at it as at black and white, this or that. It's like no, it's a process. And we do want to be objective. People hear me saying like perception is reality and subjectivity is just fundamental, but
they think you're living in a subjective world all the time.
And I'm like, first of all, I think we are, but it doesn't mean that I don't value objectivity.
Right.
I just think that people have a really, really, really hard time. Like it's like trying to run away from your shadow. When you try to run away from your subjective self, it's there. And it's like
you should acknowledge it instead of trying to be like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Or you're just being, subjective and I'm objective. It's like, what does that mean? That just tells me that you literally don't know anything about how your brain works.
Yeah.
But going just to kind of bring this whole home with Adam Neumann is when I look at Adam Neumann, it's so interesting because the thing that I had to go through is he was talking. I wasn't looking at everything that he was saying. He said that he was trying to create a vertically integrated real estate and technology company, and he wanted to deliver an experience that could only happen if he owned the process from top to bottom. And that makes a lot more sense than, no, we're a tech company and we're buying a whole bunch of buildings. It's like
people like working with us, or people like working in our space.
And so those are just like those are two different things that I missed out on, but it was something that like kind of coming full circle. I'm like, I can kind of see it. And of course, like one thing is that Ben Horowitz was saying, hey, we went back and forth, but at the end of the day, when the dust settled, I agree with him, and I think that he has a really clear vision. And part of that is Adam Neumann was probably pressed, and he was like, no, I want a vertically integrated situation, because what happens if I take technology and I go to the Four Seasons and they're like, no, we can't do this, or we want to change that, or we want to do this. It's like, then I can't deliver the experience that I want to deliver. So 100%. I have to own the buildings. The company could have owned it.
Or he could have owned it.
But he ended up owning it. He ended up owning it. The buildings. But the company could have owned the buildings, and that would have been, another thing. But
the only other thing I would add on to that, because you mentioned the Ben and Mark relationship, there's a lot of lessons, and you can tell if you guys go watch the A16Z video, that Mark and Ben are essentially making sure that Adam is playing by the rules this time.
Yeah.
They have a lot of oversight.
Yeah.
In terms of flow, in terms of how Adam is operating. They understood, and I think this is a great credit to Mark and Ben, how they can take a founder whose vision is amazing. They have an ability, like we were just talking about, to distort reality and to really gather a community of people around them and rally, and then pair that with their smart business growth tactics
and technology scaling
and everything that tells, hey, like the biggest thing that I took away from the A16Z video was the fact that Ben was like, Adam, you gotta slow down. You like to go fast, you like to do all these things, but we need to slow it down in terms of hiring, in terms of strategy, in terms of everything. Just slow down. We'll do it correctly. We'll do it the right way. And I think that's gotten through to Adam.
Yeah.
Where you can tell in this video, he's almost thankful that now he has this accountability or oversight, which I think is what's really going to get him to that successful spot. If he didn't have this kind of mentoring, I think we'd be in the same downward spiral as we were in WeWork.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very, very important to call out the influence of Ben and Mark on the new company Flow.
It's a big thing too. It's like it shows the difference between somebody who just gives you a blank check and says, go faster and go more aggressive
Yes.
versus somebody who says, hey man,
We'll
we're going
figure
to
this
slow
out.
down. Yeah, we're going to figure this
We are
out.
going to figure this out. Not
And-
you're going to figure this out.
like,
We.
and you have your strengths. We're going to let you run loose there, and we have our strengths,
Yes.
and we can make something happen there. So I think it's also another thing too in terms of being
Finding the right partner.
Exactly, finding
Yeah.
the right partner.
Yeah, I like that. There's a lot of things that we actually might have to do another episode on this, depending on how Flo turns out. Wishing him all the best,
Yeah.
but also check this super secret episode
Yeah.
if there's any other updates on Adam Neumann.
Yes. Also,
Yes.
go through and look at all of the other super secrets because they will not be available to the free public for much longer.
Exactly. All right, we'll see you next time with another super secret. Peace.